The music for this part of the overworld map isn't too impressive. It's a really short loop of the same music over and over again. It's going for a creepy feel, but I don't see why. There's nothing creepy about it, it's just a cave. I do love that we have levels on top of the mountain that is that whole world. Like, it's not even, you would think that it's just a cave world, but you actually do go on top of it. Like, I love that by using secret exits, you can actually escape the world in multiple different ways. I mean, what other Mario game does that? I think the Mario games after this point, while they do have secret exits, you always exit the world one way, by using a castle. But in this game, you can exit that world by also beating a fortress. And I think in the newer Mario games, the fortresses are always beaten before the castles, and they're just sub-points, they're sub-castles. Here I'm showing off a hopefully well-known lives trick. The problem is, I have 73 lives by this point. So, does it really matter that... I mean, it's useful if you just reloaded the file and you only have 5 lives. And it's definitely more useful later in the game than at this point. But, as you can see, I couldn't really show the glitch off as well as I could because you can only get up to 99 lives. I like that it tries to make sense where this level is clearly a mountainous area. It's not an area completely filled with bottomless pits either. Like, there's one, but there's not tons of them. So it makes sense that it's on top of the mountain of Vanilla Dome. What doesn't make as much sense is the cave area in Donut Plains. Because there's just a random mountain out of nowhere. Just for the sake of having a little cave in it. I always thought that was weird. It's like that cave is a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, because like you go so far to the left underground just so that you can go to a huge pipe that's just like a few inches away from the pipe that you entered the cave in. I always did love those giant pipes that launch you out of them. I'm sure everybody knows this by this point, but in the Japanese version of the game, you can eat those dolphins. And you can eat them in the Game Boy Advance version too. I guess it was so rushed that they forgot to remove the dolphins. That they forgot to remove eating dolphins, but it wasn't so rushed that they weren't able to add a bunch of new things to it. Like in the GBA version, you can play the original Mario Brothers. This is a pathetically easy part of the level, like all you do is just stand there. This level would certainly be harder if I didn't have the cape for floating. But yeah, it's pretty fun jumping on the dolphins. I always hated that giant puffer fish enemy. Cause like, he's so big that if you fall in the water, then you better know that you can spin jump off him harmlessly, because otherwise you're screwed. At least I think you can spin jump off him. There's so many enemies in this game, like the boos, that you can spin jump off of harmlessly for no reason. You can only take that path as Small Mario, because you can't build up momentum underwater. So it's not like you... And of course there's spikes on the ceiling, so you can't duck jump your way through it. So this level really rewards you fully knowing how the swimming physics work. if you hold up and mash the A button, or like even press A once, then you'll blast upwards a lot higher than normal. And if you're holding down while you're mashing the A button, you won't go up as high, but you'll still swim forwards. And that's necessary for not getting yourself hurt by enemies that are above you and like ahead of you. I didn't feel like showing off the whole level because of that stupid enemy there. But above me is a mini gold tape. At least I think there is. And I'm sure in the GBA version there is. The GBA version also puts a bunch of star coins in all the dungeons and fortresses. Like, I actually remember where some of them are. It's very good design that there's always an item before the boss door. Like, thank you. The Reznors in this game are named after a singer-songwriter called Trent Reznor. I don't know how... He must have been pretty famous back then, that even the people in even the people in Japan knew who he was, to the point of wanting to reference him. It feels like a difficult boss when you play it, because you don't want to fall into the lava. But you just hit the bottoms of their platforms and you beat them that way. But you can't stay on the ground for too long, because, you know, the ground is breaking and they're sending fireballs at you. This is an excruciatingly boring level. I hate having to move at the game's pace and not my own. Like, what is the point of that? Obviously, it does make sense because you just have to pretend that there's a advancing wall of doom to the left of you that you can't see. I mean, you can't go past it, so... But yeah, it's interesting to have the gimmick where if you're standing on one platform, the platform ahead of you will always be rising up. And you don't want to stand on it for too long, or you'll probably make it unwinnable. And of course, if you bounce off every one of those parachupas, then you'll get an extra life. Not that you'll need it at this point in the game. There's actually a glitch you can do here that can soft lock the game. And it took forever for me to show it off. You'll see it later. According to Nintendo, Yoshi has a longer name. It's actually Yoshi-Soar Munchakoopas, as opposed to Munch Everything. Like it's weird that they just specify the Koopas part. In Yoshi's house, there's a small logo on his mailbox's door. It's actually the logo of the Japanese Postal Service. This is the best-selling Super Nintendo game, selling over 20 million copies. Over 5% of all Super Nintendo and Super Famicom games ever sold. Because in Japan, they call the Super Nintendo Super Famicom for some reason. Because they gotta be different and special. I really hate this level. Like, this level is so cheap. Because the flying Koopas, they just come out of nowhere before you can react to them. And cheap shot you. I guess this is a level that would really benefit from having the camera scroll to the right. You need to use that thing to get that star coin. Like, that is always a creative way of getting star coins. And also a tricky way. Like you gotta make sure that you get the timing right before you lose the chance. But that's at least the one point where it's fortunate that these enemies infinitely respawn. These things may look red, but you can't get the cape from them. Well, that would be overpowered. Seriously, there's so many enemies. Like, it just completely... Like, how do they expect you to not get hit here? Although, at least this area is a breather. Like, it's pretty easy, but it's also very boring. The main 3 releases of this game handle the rewarding for completing all 96 levels differently. The Japanese version does nothing. The North American version gives your file name a star, and the EU one writes 96 in the same spot as usual, but blue. Also, you can use glitches to get some exits in levels that you're not supposed to, but the North American version doesn't count that towards your total. That's a pretty tense star coin to get, especially if you don't have the Yoshi, which I can't blame you for not having in a level where you can get cheap shotted so easily, with bottomless pits everywhere. So if you lose your Yoshi, he's like guaranteed to run into a pit. Like, you would think that all of those flying Koopas at the end of the level would be helpful because they make it really easy to hit the gold tape at a high area, but they show up so suddenly and like so close to the center of the camera that they're probably just gonna attack you. And if you're small Mario at that point, they might even kill you. You pretty much have to be using the bottom platform to get that star coin, the first one, I mean. And to get the star coin here. So, getting all the star coins requires a dangerous, constant switching between the platforms. You can actually just completely harmlessly spin jump off of these chainsaw things. Of course, if you don't know that, then the level's gonna be a lot harder. But yeah, the only reason I died there was because I tried to fly backwards in a desperate attempt to get that first star coin, but I couldn't because for no reason at all, this is one of those levels where the camera doesn't scroll up. Like, how are you supposed to know that? Like, the levels are schizophrenic about that kind of thing. This is kind of surprisingly difficult in the sense that the cannonballs can completely surprise you and hit you. But that's about it. Otherwise, it's the most basic platforming challenge ever. I do enjoy this challenge though. And it's kind of exciting how you have to jump off at one point. Of course, there's a secret exit here where you have to go underneath the goalposts. And the hint for that is that there's a platform to the left of the goalpost that's underneath it. The smartest way to get the secret exit is to just dismount Yoshi. It's too much of a risk to try to do it any other way. But yeah, what I'm showing off here is me getting that first star coin. Basically, how I'm going to be handling getting all the star coins is, if I get a star coin at any point, then basically I collected it. Like, even if I died afterwards, even if I only collect the star coin after beating the level and getting the other ones, and I still basically count that as getting that star coin. The point is that I've shown off how to get them. It's easier, this section is easier if you use the shell to kill those moles. You can actually die at this point in the level by doing a running jump on at the bottom of those gray blocks. I was trying to show that off, but I really hate that the moles respawn so easily, like it's an NES game or something. Like, that was the whole reason I got hit there, because I had no idea that those moles were gonna respawn. I naturally assumed that the game was going to remember that I killed them. Like, I really hate this level, because sure you do get a little bit of warning before they jump out of the ground, but it's like a split second. Like you see them start to jump out of the ground or the hills, and then they immediately jump out of them. So it's really easy for them to cheap shot you before you're ready. And as you can see, for no reason at all, you can't actually spin jump when you're jumping out of the water. You know, it doesn't actually make any logical sense that you even can jump out from the surface of the water. Like, what is Mario's feet pressing down against to let him jump from there in the first place. It's really just a convenient platformer mechanic. Like, I hate that secret area because there's really nothing to do there but avoid the pufferfish. Like, it's the laziest area ever. If anything, it's more of a trap because at that point it's just punishing you for checking every single pipe. If you collect all of the coins from this thing, then you'll get a reward. But I hate how long it takes to get that reward. Like, this thing is moving so slowly, so you have to really slow yourself down to get all the coins. And once you get all the coins, your only reward is a measly 1-up. Like, 1-ups, if you're not reloading your file, the 1-ups are basically useless. Because it's so easy to rack up lives in this game. Like, when you're an adult, you realize it's kind of patronizingly pointless to have the Yoshi blocks give you 1-ups if you already have a Yoshi. Like, why can't they just give you a coin? Like, there's a lot of ways that this game could be more difficult without being cheap.